everyone, and welcome to another Rime of the Frostmaiden campaign diary. But this time, something's a little bit different. I have Carl with me here today, and we're going to be doing what I've been promising for a long time, like a little interview session. And welcome, Carl. Hello.
Howdy. Thanks for inviting me. It's nice to be in the studio for a change. You know?
in the studio, our lavish soundproof room, and all that bells and whistles.
Yeah. That's good to be here.
We did not Carl and I, but I have tried to do this once already, and the idiot that I am just completely forgot to record it. So, yeah, it's a bit late coming, but I have been promising to do this, and having re-listened to the entirety of my notes recently, it's a good time to do it. It's like about 11 sessions in. It feels weird to say we've had 11 sessions, but we're almost at the end of the first year. It doesn't feel like a lot of sessions.
I suppose not, no. But, when did we start the campaign? It was
like beginning of the year.
Beginning of the year.
Yeah. Because I decided after Christmas that I want to do this year. And but we have had months, we've had month gaps before where our schedule's just not lining up and things like that. It's just, it just happens. We're all adults. We have jobs and things, I'm
sure we'll touch on it a little bit later as well, maybe when we're talking. But I definitely felt like for the last month or so, it's been a bit bad for me. And I felt really bad that maybe I was giving off an impression that maybe you and Dan were thinking, shit, does Carl not want to play anymore? Or anything like that. Because my scheduling just got really awkward this last month when it's usually not that bad. Yeah,
Dan has definitely had that fear. Especially after the last session's fiasco.
Yeah.
He definitely thought something was going up there. You and I have already had a somewhat longish talk after that session anyway, just when we were coming up with Forsburn and, about all the motives and blah, 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 blah. It's a shame I didn't capture all of that, really, but we can just try and re-emulate that speech, I guess.
Yeah, of course. Take that. Copy and paste.
Put
it forward as content. That's how video making works.
Yeah. But I think we should start from the beginning. We should start with Stronus. That's how everyone knows. Stronus, Drondala. I got it right actually that time.
Stronus Drondala.
Yes. So, my first question is inspiration behind the character, but I was obviously present with you when coming up with Stronus, and
yes,
it's making characters with you is very different from making characters with Dan, for instance. He has the entire kit and caboodle done. You are more, I find sometimes you are more mechanically minded. You have an idea, a loose idea, RP wise. You have a mechanical idea, pretty much maybe set in stone, and then the rest is you tell me what is available, and then I'll pick and choose.
Of course,
more or less.
So a lot of thing that I think a lot of D&D players, and I think Dan falls into this mindset as well, is that they'll have an idea for their character that they want to create and build that up, and then work with you to pull back and forth, do this and that, because they want to see this idea of a character come to life.
Yeah.
With me, I'm sort of in the opposite direction. I'm happy to step into anyone's shoes as long as the pair I don't care what brand of shoes they are, really. As long as they're, as long as it's a pair of shoes that you could sell to me and I think, oh yeah, that sounds cool. So, I'm happy to come up with any character concept, any race. Class is probably the thing that I think about the most, where I'm just what would be fun for me, or mechanically.
Yeah.
So I think about that first, and then I come up with a character after, and we come up with something that sounds fun to play, and then I like to, once the character's actually made, when we're playing, that's when I focus on, the narrative.
Yeah, I even said in the thingy campaign diary about when I was introducing Forsburn and things like that, that a lot of his stuff is just going to be, let's play and see how he turns out and what happens with him, story-wise with him specifically. It's let's just see he's a spanner. Let's just see how he mucks up the works, Yeah. It's a wait and see kind of thing.
I distinctly remember for Stronus, when we were bouncing ideas off each other for characters, I remember, I can't remember if it was you or me or Sarah, but the words came up, how about D&D sort of Mr. Bean, sort of. Like,
I
you know,
think,
like,
I think that what,
you know what I mean?
yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, I can't remember who it was, but yeah, there was a moment. I think you were smitten with the idea of these dwarves. When I described to you what the Jorga were, I think you were smitten with that idea of, okay, yeah, an archetypical Warhammer dwarf almost.
But you know me, I like dwarves. Dwarves are a really fun, cool race in my eyes. Not enough people play them, so.
Yeah, I can't remember if you already decided wizard. I think you had already decided wizard.
I think so. Yeah, I decided I was going to play a wizard because Dan, unfortunately, is not very inclined towards the
magic. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, he needs to work on that, especially if he's got to play a cleric in another game.
I'm happy to be a role filler, so I'm happy to swing spells and do that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of just started talking about the lore behind Jorga and what their, how their kind of things work, about the Care Arcanus and what their kind of role is. They're like archaeologists kind of thing. And I think halfway through, when coming up with we had most of the story that in the entire time, for going out to find this hold, blah, blah, blah. But then you were like, what if, like, I'm actually not good at any of this, and I just kind of fudged my way through all of it, and I was like, that is perfect. That's such a great idea.
So a background feat that we came up with for Stronus is that he is a Jorga of happenstance.
Yeah.
So basically what sort of happens with him is that, like, even though of course, like, as a member of the Arcanum, he has, like, obviously learned knowledge, but he's not quite like a super, like, presence of mind kind of person, and like not everything he has achieved in his life he did intentionally. Shit just kind of happens.
Yeah.
He's been at the center of it. So it's definitely led to him being in situations that he was not prepared for to deal with, and it's a big part of his backstory and, like, the bad things that happened to him and what kickstarted the narrative. I remember saying one of the earlier campaign diaries when I was explaining Stronus's character, going over what it kind of has translated into in game, and I'll talk about that in a second. But I remember one example giving of, like, this Jorga of happenstance thing was like, you'll be in a test or something, and someone will be saying, right, what do we add to this? And you just go, garlic. I'm like, well done. It makes no sense, but it's the correct answer somehow, and it just works out.
It works somehow. It all seems to work out until eventually, obviously, your luck did run out. Unfortunately, but early on, the how that kind of translated, I don't know if you remember the time when you were, like, in the first session you were fighting like goblins, and you rolled a natural 1 on to try and chase after someone, but you ended up rolling and then flipping onto them anyway, and, like, the whole comprehend languages to talk to a warg, which shouldn't have worked, but it did for some reason. I like to think as well that, I make a big joke about Stronus with his with the divination feature that lets him figure out rolls beforehand. Portent rolls.
I foresee this. I like to think that definitely, like, ties into his happenstance, just sort of nature. It just sort of, like, works out because, like, he even though he says he foresees this, I like to think it's fate, like, sort of fucking with him, right? Like, it's just like, well, this is just happening. He feels like it might happen, and then like, he's hoping that it'll happen, and then it happens. Even if it's not completely within his will.
Yep.
Yeah.
The wording I've written down for the Phaether of Arkansas, the Jorga happenstance kind of thing, is things go right for you more often than not, and while 95% of the time you wince at the words coming from your mouth, waiting for the day when you'll be found out, it never comes. For whatever reason, because you haven't a clue, things seem to work out. The DM may give you advantage, blah, 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 and all this other bit. But yeah, that's generally the idea of... in your early years, you were definitely kind of Mr. Bean, fumbling through your education, taking a lot of it in and some of it in, but it has led to. I think he's definitely now he's less of a clumsy. He's less of that kind of happenstance kind of character. He definitely has. He feels like the oldest one in the group, and he is the oldest one in the group by a couple hundred years. But
he's been sobered quickly.
Yeah. But, especially within the last few sessions, I can see he's gone from that, singing quite happy-go-lucky, still having quite a lot of insight into things, and still being intelligent and being played intelligently, if I might say so myself, and all that kind of stuff. It definitely has picked up with the whole Mount Minrock situation, discovering that, and then the election fiasco. He has he's like the old one, he's the responsible one. He's like, right, this is.
Well, it's almost come out of the sense of, I'd say, necessity, because when you think about the events that have surrounded him while he's out in the world, he sees Reyna almost like a child in a lot of ways, because of her light demeanor on a lot of the events that are occurring, and Stronus has witnessed both her and Mutiny at times, going down in battle, and having to step up in a really dire situation to try and get them out of it. There was a time where he recovered both of them when I think we were fighting a
ice elemental.
Yes, an ice elemental out on the plains when we were traversing across there.
That was on your first journey to Goodmead.
Yes, and Stronus was able to prevail and managed to get them both situated. It's events like that have been slowly piling up, seeing Reyna fall in battle, and of course the narrative events that are described that have just very quickly, it's the equivalent of sink or swim, bitch. Where you kick the kid out, and Stronus has just had to swim, and he's barely keeping his head above water, and I think the recent narrative events, he's not been up for air for a little bit now, which is why he ended up leaving the group.
Yes, the everything kind of piling in, and he's like the only one as well that has taken that. Granted, we've not had Mutiny for a couple sessions, and Reyna is as Reyna is. But he's like the one there who seems to have been able to take a step back and look at what's going on and being like, I'm not ready for this yet. Jeez, this is a lot.
I will say that the event of the attack happening at the election, I'm quite jealous that Susie was there for that and I wasn't, because that actually sounded really fucking cool.
Yeah, it was. It was
like, damn it,
a great moment that. I even said at the end of the campaign diary when you did the whole getting the mead from the caves thing, when they let Garg go, I even said then, Stronus said we shouldn't have done that, and then I say to the audience, I say to the listeners, I'm like, yeah, they shouldn't, because she's going to come back later.
I knew at that time, I knew for a fact, because I asked you, I said, what does Stronus know about these people? And you said these creatures, these verbies, I think you called them, were evil.
They are
straight
evil.
Up just evil creatures.
Yes.
And Stronus, regardless of whether he's a Jorga of happenstance or whatever, he is a Jorga. And these people, we grow up with these very staunch beliefs in things. I knew for a fact. We let her go. She was going to absolutely bring payback, especially because we killed her lover.
Yeah.
So that was definitely going to happen. And I voiced this to the group, both as Stronus and also as a player. You do know that this is definitely going to have repercussions. And all I could say is it is a shame that I was not there to see them live, but I let the group know on the next session that I foresaw this.
Yeah. I also kind of wonder what were the motivations there. I'm not sure of what Susie's, what Mutiny's motivations were to letting her go. She doesn't really have a big, in her story, she doesn't really have a big thing for second chances. Reyna does. She does have an idea about this, second chances kind of things. I don't know if that was it. Motivations. Reyna's stuff seems to flip back and forth between, I'm doing this because this is growth. No, now I'm doing something opposite because that's also growth. It's really...
Dan is very intentionally playing Reyna within the depths of, her own naivety.
Yes.
And I will say that, Dan is doing that very well. with the situation she finds herself in, her outlook. She wants to be on the positive side, but now she's conflicted because recent events are telling her that, you know, that's a bad outlook. She needs to be more, you know, realistic about stuff, but that's conflicting with her nature, etc., etc. It very much gives me, you know, the vibes of, you know, like, I'd say like a young Keyleth, you know, from Critical Role.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah. That's something as well, I think, again, I don't know if that is him actually playing the character really well, or if it's just Dan, because Dan is not, you know, I love him to bits, don't get me wrong, he's a great person, but there are some times where, especially when he's tired or whatever, his attention, you know, comes in and out, and I know a lot of people are like that, but sometimes there's things where he's like, did he really mean to do that, or did he really mean to pick up on what he's just said? There's just lapses in concentration every now and then.
We just need to say the truth of the matter, Chris. We both know it. He's like 70 years old. We know he's a good man.
Yeah, sure.
And,
yeah.
Really, I should be playing his character. He should be playing mine. You know?
Yeah, but it's also genius because it works perfectly for Reyna. She's like this woman, this young girl, essentially, that has lived by herself since like 14 years old, 16 years old, I think it actually is, for like 5 years. So she has no understanding of a greater world. She only has herself. What she thinks, what her principles are, is all based on something that she's been like tossed over and not been able to do anything with. She is like, he's playing her perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Annoyingly so. Annoyingly so.
It totally works, like from a narrative perspective.
Yeah.
Even as the DM, you know, if you want your whole party to, you know, take the stakes seriously, I think it works just as fine to have, you know, just one player take the stakes seriously and then have that be a point of contention between the party, because that in itself creates drama.
Yeah.
And, you know, creates like that sort of narrative, like between Stronus and Reyna, because like Reyna like verbalized herself when like Stronus left. Like Reyna, Dan verbalized through Reyna that she sees him as like, you know, sort of like a mentor in a lot of ways because of like how young she is and how obviously how old he is, and she misses him, like not being in the party now. And Mutiny said, obviously played by you at the time, but Mutiny said like, this was something that, you know, you maybe should have said while he was still here.
Yeah.
So, you know, it still works really well, I think, from a storytelling perspective.
You don't know what you got until it's gone, kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's something Reyna is having to. It seems like a lot of the things that she has to learn the hard way. A lot of the things, even like her going down all the time, you can even think of it that way, like she gets in the face of something, you know, because she's impulsive, she's naive, she's brash, she doesn't know the dangers of these things she's fighting, she's getting in her face, she's going down. Now obviously, you know, that's just down to the dice rolls, but you can roll that into the story.
Yeah, of course, but to be fair, he has rolled pretty poorly. Combat. And you know, these combats that you're putting us into as well, obviously I say I wasn't present for the last one, but the ones before that we've taken part of, they've not been a cakewalk by any stretch.
No.
Some of them have been actually like quite difficult, and people have gone down consistently.
A CR6 Frost Skeleton, for instance, at level 3, or level 2 even, for instance, that you fought. And then that hag where you had no resources that you fought. So yeah, you've been doing super well. I mean, a lot of that stuff is kind of in the book as well, but at the same time, I'm of the mind, I never used to be, but I'm definitely of the mind now where I'm more about bigger fights, as in like single creature, big fights, like boss battles, make every fight, you know, almost like, make every fight as deadly as possible. Sure, have some trivial fights where it's a cakewalk, but I don't like the mentality where you're going to have tons of like super easy fights and then a mini boss and then a boss. I like just have big gladiatorial arena type
you
fights.
Want your party to respect that, oh shit, I can actually die, like, you know, this is some dangerous motherfuckers that we're fighting. You know, for me, I'm not sure what Forsburn thinks yet, but as a player, I think that fucking going to fight this sea monster next session is a stupid idea. I don't want to fight this thing. I don't think we can beat it. We haven't, like, we're not prepared to fight something on the open lake, I don't think. Like,
yeah, exactly. Especially given where you're going to be fighting it, in the middle of a frigid, frozen lake, where the other two aren't going to be able to survive that if they get pulled under. Well, actually, Mutiny would, because she's a frost tiefling, but Reyna will die. Like, she'll freeze to death, you know, unless there's precautions. I mean, you're not wrong. It's definitely that kind of, you definitely can die. That was a motivation behind the whole election day thing, you know, to see, like, weird stuff can happen. Like, logs can, you know, come flying above your heads from like things that you have or haven't done.
Thing is, as well, like, as a player, I'm totally not afraid of character death. Like, obviously, I'm not going to throw my character to the wolves. I am, like, they're obviously going to look after themselves and try to, you know, persevere. But I welcome the day where, you know, whether it's in, you know, one of your campaigns or Dan's or one of my online friends, I welcome the day where one of our characters, like, whether it's mine or anyone else's in the party, just straight up dies, and the sober realization hits that, oh shit, they're gonna have to roll up a new fucking character and we actually have to grieve. Like, I look forward to that, because that's a powerful storytelling beat.
That's exactly it, because you are very, like, you're like story, like, focused player.
Yes.
Hence the whole move for Stronus was just this will be a good story beat. Let's do this, like, almost on a whim, like you said. We've actually kind of covered two topics in there at once, which I wanted to cover. There was a little bit. We can talk a little bit about Mutiny. I don't know if we haven't really seen much of Mutiny, mainly because she hasn't been around to play. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about Mutiny or.
Yeah, I haven't, unfortunately, been able to talk to Susie that much.
Yeah.
As is the case with the rest of us, I think. So just talking with her on the group chat when possible. And I said it sucks that I missed the last session where she was able to play. So
yeah,
unfortunately, that would have been a full party. And I'm usually not the person missing sessions, but as I said, this last month has been kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But in the case of Mutiny as a character, it's been unfortunate because, as said, her lack of being available because of life, stuff being in the way, has led to you filling in her shoes more often than not.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, that leads to less exploration because, you know, you obviously don't want to be piloting the character for her.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you also do recognize, well, shit, it would just be a two-person party if, you know, if...
yeah, it's a hard line to walk.
Admittedly, even though I do, you know, enjoy the game, I will say sometimes it does feel like roleplay is definitely a bit lacking because, you know, there's so few of us. It might be different for you because you and Dan are used to, you know, the one-on-one sessions, and that's something that you've done for a while. So maybe you're more comfortable with that. But for me personally, I can find it very difficult to try and just role play with Dan at times when there's not like a significant event for us to give a lot of substance.
Yes,
I find a lot that, you know, Dan, in the case of a stereotypical Stronus conversation with Reyna, Reyna will typically fall back to the trope of just saying a joke about Stronus, like him being bald or something like that, just like taking the piss out of him. Stronus be like, oh, you don't need to do that, do a laugh or whatever, and, you know, there's not really a whole lot there. And then Susie would play the character that's just like, oh, both of you knock it in, whatever.
Yeah,
definitely a little bit phoned in at times, and when one, especially when one part of that element, that three-person dynamic is missing as well, it can definitely feel a bit hard to carry that weight roleplay wise, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, that is...
So at times there's areas, you know what I mean, where it just seems like there's a little bit of a waiting for you to say what happens next, I guess.
Yeah, I get that. I have got a slight remedy to that, and it's quite close to the thing where, you know, we haven't really got a solid idea of what's going to happen with Mutiny, and, you know, Susie being available to play. There's not been any, like, solid confirmation of you know, retirement or, you know, any kind of like it's all kind of open in the air whether, you know, she actually wants to play and is, like, interested in the story and keeping things up to date, blah blah blah, or if I should just take full control and make her an NPC for all intents and purposes. It's all kind of up in the air and a bit with that, and it's a little bit just a bit confusing of what to do with it. And then there's a story there that with her character that I do want to tell. I knew this might be a facet, so I didn't make it super integral, like Stronus's thing is, and Rayna's thing. But nevertheless, it's still there, and I would like it to be explored. But depending on what happens, and it's just may or may not. So I might have to push it to the wayside. I have had other thoughts, and I've already started to put sprinkles of this down, which is something else you may have also seen when if you were present not last session but the session before last, where some NPCs that you might have come across may join you for short parts of time, and then I can fill in that gap of being like another NPC, and then I don't have to feel pressured about revealing something that a person might not want to reveal, because I'll just be playing the NPC, and they'll have their own input, their own information, their own agenda. Like last time we had Captain Indra fought on your side when the attack happened in Goodmead. I've got a few other places and started sprinkling some of these NPCs into other quest lines, and as we continue to go forward and you've helped more of 10 towns and things start to escalate, there will be more of these opportunities where you'll be able to get people in, to help you and things like that. So hopefully that will help towards bridging that RP gap eventually at some point. Mm-hmm. That's the hope. We shall see. It's difficult. It's definitely difficult.
As for Mutiny as a character, sort of trail off there a little bit.
Yes.
I would say that so far from what I've seen of her, there's the character, and then there's the player playing the character. I definitely see that distinction a lot more, I think, with Mutiny than I do with Rayna. Whereas, Mutiny is, from what I've seen, I liken her a lot to, and the comparison, I guess, is pretty direct to what's her name? Why have I forgotten her name? Carillion from Vermintide. Sort of like, except like way less rude, obviously, but like sort of that holding a level head, sort of like keeping the group like sort of on track. Also, got that layer of mystique behind the character that's not present in Rayna and Stronus. There's a certain mystique to Mutiny. In which we don't necessarily understand. We know that she has deeper ties to things in your
Grey Priory.
I forget what they're called, the Grey Priory. Yes, stuff like that me and Rayna don't know a whole lot on. So we know there's definitely like something interesting going on there. But as a player, I feel like when often when she controls, and I think this comes down to, as I said, her
inexperience,
missing some sessions, and just inexperience of being able to get into role play more. A lot of the times, I often do see her as a just an extension of herself in a lot of the characters that she plays, which is totally fine. Yeah, she absolutely can do that. But yeah, it's just very interesting because it's just we see a bear or something, it's just like, oh, but a bear.
Yeah, it is basically just that. But yeah. You nailed it on the head. There's a lot more to Mutiny's character. She's definitely the most like world, like I don't know what the word would be, but she knows more about the wider world than Stronus to some extent, and definitely Rayna. Like she knows more. She's got the whole Grey Priory thing. She is a trained hunter. She is a very skilled individual, as rangers and fighters should be. I mean, she's got like a +8 to hit with her longbow, for Christ's sake. It's insane. They're
fucking archers, man.
Yeah. I mean, there is definitely a separation between player and Mutiny, and that's what when I have to step into Mutiny's shoes, I try and steer it more towards the Mutiny that I know that Mutiny should be, but at the same time, I do have my moments where I have to no, Susie wouldn't do this, so I'm not going to.
I get like the visual image of like you. There's like a big red button in front of you where it just says role play, and like you're playing as Mutiny, and you're just like, just press the button for 5 seconds. Oh wait, no, I don't want to do too much. Oh, let's press the button again.
Yeah, it's it is what it is. It seems to be working all right so far. There's not been too many, it's not too bad. It's not like we're deep in the middle of hell or whatever, kind of thing.
I miss playing with a full party, so I hope we can get that going.
We've had touched on a little bit about this, but what about the game in general? Like, do you have? We've talked a little bit about it, but any thoughts on like difficulty level? Any opportunities that you've liked or want to have? Any story moments? Any favourite moments? Even anything like that, story-wise in general?
I'd say a big thing in the background of this campaign. You said this like leading before character creation was a big thing was about the secrets that the characters have, these things that are defining their past or whatever, and I'd say the major thing is that players seem very hesitant, me included, and I know Dan for sure, about when they want to like pull the trigger on that kind of stuff, right? Because at least in my eyes, traditionally, there's usually like let's take like your standard arc from like Critical Role or something, right?
Yeah.
An arc will occur where like an important NPC or something where it pulls them into an area where it's very specific on one character, where you can clearly see, oh, this is Talison's arc, oh, this is Travis's arc or whatever, and that's what kicks the pulls the trigger for that full style of thing. We're all in the Frostgales and we're all moving around and stuff, and there's definitely been lulls in the story where and I'd say to me it seems like you're trying to pull up this this big jigsaw puzzle in the background, and the pieces will ever so slowly move around and pull into place or whatever, and I'm sure this will eventually culminate in something like or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But it definitely leads to situations, I'd say, where as players, me and Dan sometimes feel like we're getting more questions than we are answers. So we're just sort of like, what do we do? And then there'll be moments where, to sort of fill it in, where Stronus will or someone will pull up small hints to her backstory to try and fill that little bit of a gap, which is sort of a big reason as well why I decided for Stronus to talk with Hearsay to do that that sort of thing, to try and keep his backstory relevant and stuff, because I wanted to make sure that there was stuff to fill the gap, and why he also clued in Hruna about it as well. So yeah, I'd say that would be the main thing. There's sometimes just a little bit of direction, because stuff the mystery of the missing people, and what followed after that as well. Obviously, we're still going about this, but also investigating Merrin's place has not led to a huge amount of answers. So I guess that would be the main thing. We feel like perhaps we might be just picking up on far too many questions than answers. So it sort of feels hard to feel like we're progressing. I can totally get that. I did talk a little bit about this on one of the campaign diaries as well, I think, about how there's a lot of sowing seeds and a lot of nurturing happening. And that might just be, that's definitely just because of the way of the level of stuff that I've wanted to try and get out as quickly as possible. I will take that nugget and I will ingest it, and I will try and sprinkle in some growth things as naturally as possible. There are answers to be had, and you're right, a lot of them do lead to just more questions or straight up red herrings. Yes. I definitely feel like you're playing some slight red herring stuff here with Merrin, in my opinion. I feel like not all. I think Dan in particular thinks that there is some connection with Merrin, and the attack.
Yeah.
On the thing. I don't think there is. I think that's all just happenstance. I think Merrin is scared shitless for his life and is just fucking dipped. That sort of thing. And I think you're clever as well, because I think you don't delete that. You've kept that fresh in Dan's mind, so I think he's lingering on it a bit.
It also kind of comes from a place of I talk about this in the first episode, I think, where the original inspiration behind this campaign from the Wizards of the Coast designers was John Carpenter's The Thing, where it's paranoia. They don't really know what's going on. It's who can we really talk to? Who can we really trust? What is linked with what? Kind of, whoa, that kind of thing. And I've tried to there isn't much paranoia in the way at the moment. You've seen hints of them being suspicious of wizards, but how much of that has really come up? Not really, apart from the burning. It hasn't really impacted you guys that much, it doesn't seem. There are some inconsistencies there in my role playing of certain people as well. Like Captain Intra, I've played very differently in two different instances where I just haven't kept on top of how she should be, and certain other people as well I've been a bit consistent with. But yeah, the general sense of what's happening, how dour it is, it's been very up and down on my part, and I think maybe just letting some of those threads linger is a bit trying to slight reparations for that. Maybe just try and throw some things into question and bring up that questionable air. Things like this is another thing, because there are so many layers, and it brings you back to your point about there's a lot of things you find and it leads to nothing, but it probably will later. There is multiple layers to this kind of thing. There's the whole there's the rhyme layer over all of it, isn't there? There's what's up with this rhyme? Why is that here? It's got something to do with the god Aurora, because you've seen that. You've seen Aurora in the funeral ceremony. She showed up for intensive purposes and had a stiff with Rega. So there's something going on there. That's the top layer, and then beneath that there is something else with these missing people and this arcade, this assembly, and beneath that there's the whole Mount Minrock stuff, and then beneath that is the little town disputes and all your personal stuff, and it's how much of this stuff links? Is it linked at all? There's multiple layers to be peeled back and looked through, and I think
I only bring it up because I say as a player, it can just feel a little bit odd, when we've gone through so many investigations or whatever, and we come up not necessarily empty-handed, but just with barely anything that we can actually fill a checkbox with, and then we think to ourselves, shit, did we do something wrong? Did we not check somewhere? It makes you feel a little bit odd as a player to sort of you're still in the middle of nowhere, I guess.
Yes. I understand that, and that's that's partly because I've jumped you into these bigger arcs right from the get-go, where you're not going to see that conclusion until we render the thingy, and that's just as it is, I guess. But
I will say, on the flip side, I fucking love the combat scenarios you've laid out for us so far. Whether they're from the book or whether you came up with them or whatever. I love that fight against the
Golem.
The Golem, yes, the Golem was really cool. I love the system with the color changing lights and stuff, and how I'm ducking behind the shells and I'm flinging spells over. Raina's charging in, and fucking Azazel carried that fight, did a shitload of damage.
Pretty much, yeah.
That was really fun. I enjoyed that fight. I've been having a lot of fun in the combat, as a wizard. It's been pretty fun. I've enjoyed it.
And that's even without a battle map, I have to stress as well. We've not been using maps. It's all been theatre of the mind and doing our best just to try and do it in our heads, imaginatory. It's been different, to say the least. But I think it's been working. I think it's been fine.
I will say, on an interesting note, I think it totally works for a lot of Wizards of the Coast style campaigns, because I assume that if you are taking a lot of these fights from the book or whatever, they provide battle maps, right? Like,
there's maps for like the dungeons and things. But
yeah, sure.
that's
But
about it.
I've from my experience from like the adventures that I've looked at from Wizards of the Coast, like battle maps and stuff, they're fucking tiny, man. They are
Yeah,
so
they are.
small, like the rooms where you do battles in, like a large, like 90% of the time, you might as well not even bother like putting a map up because like from one end of the room to the other, it's like 4 squares wide and then like 10 squares deep.
Yeah, 20 feet. Yeah.
Like everything is in range of each other anyway. So why even bother like having a battle map almost? So like Fear of the Mind like works a lot more I think for this than it would for something like custom adventures in like Dimension 20 or Critical Role where there's a lot more wider map areas and much more open areas where there's a need to actually like establish visually what shit looks like.
Yeah, that's something I've trying to be taken into account, like you say, like when there's almost a bit like when you walk into a video game, like this looks like an arena. This looks like there's going to be a boss fight here. Like the room, like for instance, the room with the golem was like an 80-foot diameter circle room. It's like, this is a big room. Why is this here? And there's a big giant golem. The room with the hag was like a giant shrine place where there was a hot spring that's all now frozen over. It's massive, and like
I will say, by the way, sorry to interrupt you. I just remembered as well for the golem fight. I fucking love how you how you gave me and like the party the opportunity to nearly get away with that fucking with the mage hand shit. Oh, that was nearly so cool. That was nearly so great. I was satisfied with how far we got as well because I was rolling really good into the last check.
I was like, yeah. It's like, damn you! I'm gonna make this hard. 3 skill checks. Go.
I love the opportunity though. Like, to just try it. Yeah.
I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah.
I graciously accept. Oh man, Stronus's story. We've talked a little bit about it and its involvement, and you've said expressed your concerns with pacing. I think is really is the kind of the issue there. Is like the amount of stuff you've been given, and the little town squabbles, blah 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 blah. Now that Stronus has left, we have talked a little bit about what do we think is going to happen here, where do we think he actually is, and we've kind of settled on the conclusion that it doesn't matter where he is, it's not really that important to think about necessarily where he is, kind of thing.
I like to think perhaps maybe he would use that that cave that we discovered. Perhaps like he would actually like inhabit that like sort of as like his little base because he feels like maybe Rain and Mutiny wouldn't go back there, and if they do, perhaps they'll find him there.
The one in Goodmead or the East Haven one. All right.
Yeah.
The one with the little statue underneath the frozen ice.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, the place where I'm like, oh, you could refurbish this as a stronghold later down.
Stronus might use that as like his little base because he thinks like, well, Mutiny and Rayna didn't show any interest in it, so
it's a bit Darth Vader-y as well. Not that you'd understand the reference, but you've actually gone back to the place pretty much where this started. It's like in the place where you said, like, we could do some good here.
It's worth knowing I've never watched Star Wars. My friends hate me.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. That's what I was going to lead to. In reference to his story, though, like when he does come back, and like, are you intrigued to see like what this Vulcan is up to, and where this all leads, how it all ties in?
Oh yeah, I want to see what goes on with Stronus' story. I really like Forsburn. I like the idea that we came up for him, and I'm like, it's good fun to take a change and play from a different point of view, especially because like Forsburn is playing a character that obviously he's going to get along with the party, but like he's very rough. He's not going to put up with a lot of shit, and he's going to be quite aggressive in a lot of ways. But I'm still quite eager to jump back to Stronus whenever the natural point for that will be, or whether Forsburn dies or whatever, and come to the conclusion of his story, because all the stuff with Vulcan Runebrand, he's very spooked about Vulcan because he knows the situation in Minrock. He wants to go back, but at the same time he knows he fucking can't really, and he fears for himself because he feels he's being hunted. And yeah, it's a it's a scary situation for him, and one that he needs to confront at some point. He's just putting it off for now. I'm looking forward to when that will all eventually come to a head.
As my one concern, like that was my only concern with Stronus leaving, is any further like little breadcrumbs that your party picks up along the way. Stronus is not going to get if he hears anything, anything at all which sounds that'll give him some more information. I suppose that's partly why you've got Heresy on the job as well. That's kind of worked retrospectively in your favor to try and get those nuggets elsewhere.
I'd like to think hopefully Heresy might also perhaps keep every once in a while get word on like what's going on with the party. Like
I have been
what they're up to.
I have been rolling some more like intelligence checks for him, so you may have an update coming soon, and I'll just message it across to you at some point. I've also thought about, I don't know if I want to do this, having like a mini 2-hour session of just something that Stronus is doing, or have something happen, or I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not too sure yet. Still just kind of milling on that one.
Thinking on it.
Yeah. I suppose we'll bring this into a close in a little bit. Is there any pressing, burning questions or anything that that I can answer that you kind of have for me, maybe, even though we do kind of talk about this quite frequently? So,
trying to think. Because any questions that I do have are going to be quite plot related.
I can give you roundabout answers. I'm not going to openly spoil my story.
Okay. I guess.
What's interesting here as well, before you ask as well, is that sometimes what I might find is that the listeners may know the answer as well because they have a lot of the info.
I guess I'm still interested somewhat on maybe some earlier characters that you dropped and are just not relevant anymore. I'm interested about what was it? I think it was a bugbear.
Knock and Squawk, yeah.
Yeah, Knock Squawk. And whether that's going to have any bearing on what goes on in relation to, was it Bryn Shander?
Yeah, that they were. Yes. What if I remind you? What Narc and had negotiated with you was in return for giving you the iron ingots and the stuff, was that he wanted your recommendation almost. He wanted your approval. He wanted your word, your vote of confidence in something later down the line. We haven't seen that thing later down the line yet, but he is most definitely, he wanted that trade agreement with Bryn Shander, so it's definitely on the cards. It's definitely there.
That's on the smaller end, but also the mention of the dark-skinned goblin named Zarazes that I've got here in my note.
Zarazes, yeah.
Yeah, I'm still thinking about that. I feel like you've alluded to that earlier on, and that will come back in some fashion, maybe.
Without spoiling anything, that is probably the most important thing for you personally.
For me, okay. Interesting. Do you know? I've also noticed as well, just looking at these notes, because I scroll to find his name to talk about that. Underneath, we've got 2 potions of animal friendship. We haven't used those. We still have those in the inventory somewhere. When we will use them, who knows?
Who knows? Yeah. I can't even remember where you got them from. Oh, I know where. It was off the goblin carriage, wasn't it? Because obviously they were trying to control the polar bears that weren't very happy.
And a bone whistle.
Oh yes, the bone whistle. Just random stuff.
Yep.
You're just going to be thinking of the Caduceus Clays though with the bone whistle, aren't you? Yeah. Yes, but yeah, definitely it's worth going through these notes, especially when you're in those moments where, how does this all add up? It's worth to look through your notes and
no, believe me, I have. I'm not going to share, or maybe I will. I don't know. But I messaged Dan a theory, by the way, recently, based on the note that we got, or the notes that we got from Merrin's Safe about this RK fellow.
Yes.
I was looking back in my notes and I found someone that I messaged to Dan. I was just like, it could be this person. We should keep that in our minds because I think it might be this person.
I think it's funny how players often have to feel the need to withhold information from the DM. Really? Okay.
Well, I mean, I could tell you then. Okay.
Well, I know the answers. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah.
It's just I want to be included. Damn it! I want to hear about your theories.
You can change the plot. It's player v DM.
No, this is so. A lot of this stuff is so hard. It's
okay.
set in stone. It's like,
Okay.
yeah.
I was looking through my notes because, like, once again, you dropped like more fucking like initials. Right? So I'm thinking like, right, he's dropped initials. Maybe he's got someone beforehand. And I was looking through, and what I found interesting, like looking through my notes, I was looking at and you mentioned it earlier, the burning of that guy in East Haven.
Mm-hmm.
You dropped his name like quite a few times. I think if this guy, like, if you wanted to make a show of, like, you know, a mage that was burning or whatever, I don't think you would have name dropped him. I think it would have just been like, you know, some mage, or like, you know, you would have said like just a name once and then that's it. But you said his name like quite a few times to the point where it's making me believe that this guy fucking pulled a rim in some way. That was a simulacrum. That was a simulacrum or some shit like that burned on the pyre, I think. So I'm thinking maybe this RK is what was his name? Rensaram or
Relsaram. Yeah.
Relsaram, that's it. Yeah.
Relsaram Cree.
Let me change that. Yeah, so I don't know his second name, but perhaps, I mean, of course, that's just a wild stretch because fucking it's just R and R, right? Like that's the only connection that I have to that so far, R and R. But you mentioned about this Azarine assembly as well when I was thinking about it. Magic School, like, you know, in the Freelands, this guy begins with an R, burned for being a fucking mage. I'm thinking maybe he's alive and maybe he's part of this assembly. So that's my theory, and I haven't said all of that to Dan, but I just messaged him saying like, perhaps it's this Relsaram fellow.
And Dan also should have notes on Relsaram because he has. It was mostly there for a nod because he was one of the first NPCs that Armin met in the Armin campaign. He was a map maker from Ket.
Really?
Yeah.
He's from the
Ket.
game you played with Dan?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was a Frostmaiden elf. He was there, you know, and Armin gave him like a book to decode. Then he disappeared.
Wait, so Dan recognised him. He knew who that NPC was.
Dan should have known who the NPC was. Yeah, as a player, he should have done.
I don't know if he did. That sounds like something you would have talked to him about.
There's been a lot of NPCs that have shown up. Yeah. Like Norbeck, you know, the dwarf who runs the.
Yeah, but you talked to him about that after the encounter, though.
Yeah.
You said, "Hey, that was Norbeck," and he's like, "Oh, for fuck's sake!" Because like he's been hunting that guy.
I think. He betrayed Armin. And there was a lot of interaction there. Whereas with Relsaram, he literally just was the map maker NPC. You know, it's like going to talk to the general shop bloke. You got his name once, and he was like, "Oh, I'll be able to decode that diary thing for you." They gave him the diary. The next day, he wasn't there, and that's literally where they left that off. And so, having him here, I was hoping like Dan might go, "All right, this is where he is. Why is he up here?"
Okay.
It's like literally he was a random NPC in Dan's game.
Well, that makes me even more suspicious now that you've used him up here. If he's been a part of another campaign. Even if he's not this RK guy, I feel like he's fucking alive. I think he's alive. I don't think you just burn him at the stake like that randomly to like prove a point. And
again, like the assembly as well, Dan should have some inkling of what that is because that's come up in the thingy game. You know, it's all part of the same world, so of course these organisations will come up. Armin should have actually one of his best mates from school in his like background would have come from the Azarine assembly. That's, you know, it's the magic school in the south, of course.
Yeah.
So it's another like name he should have noticed. And that's another part of the goal that I want to eventually is like when we get to like campaign 2 or whatever, and hopefully we'll have everyone on board for that. I want there to be things that you've learned about the setting, and when I drop like, oh yeah, this is a Grey Priory thing, I just want you to go, oh right, I know what the Grey Priory is, like as a player, without having to think, you know, without having to go, oh yeah, you know Grey Priory. You know, it's that whole thing in Critical Role when they're like Tal'Dorei Council, and they're like, oh my god, who's on the Tal'Dorei Council? Because they know about it. I like that, and yeah. I just like that the feel of, oh yeah, all these things are connected, blah blah blah. You know, it's part of the same setting.
Aside from that, I'd say that extends, I guess, the most of my theories so far, and like my thoughts the campaign, I guess. I'm saying I'm having fun, and I've enjoyed this. I'm going to enjoy this stint as Forsburn, playing in that shoes.
As am I. We haven't really talked much about Forsburn, but that, again, there isn't really much to speak about Forsburn, really, is there? It's
not a massive amount, particularly. It was cool in the character creation process, because I was flipping through ideas. I said, like, right, I want to play Rogue. And Chris is like, why? I'm just like, because I want to play Rogue. Fuck off.
yeah. Okay, interesting.
So,
all right then.
Okay. And then he suggested, I was going through classes, just like, you could play the Khotan. And I'm like, oh yeah. Say no more. Sign me up. I'll play Khotan.
What are they? They're basically like the real Garen from the Hours of Dawn, but meaner. Oh yeah. Okay, sold.
Hell yeah. I'm down for it. And my idea for as I've talked to Chris before, I guess it's just for exposition's sake. My idea for playing Forsburn is that obviously, he'll have his own little backstory, and maybe that'll come into play, maybe it won't. Who knows? Because he is going to be serving as a character.
Yeah.
But he is, mainly focused to facilitate, I guess, Stronus' leaving from departure from the party, about how Reyna being too naive and that sort of thing. So Forsburn is going to exist literally as a foil to this concept, or like an example of this concept, to be like, hey, shit is rough out here, and this is a harsh life. These are harsh events that are going to be confronted, and Forsburn is in a perfect scenario to just play the devil's advocate in the group.
Yeah.
Right? To be the one to do the dirty thing or the bad thing that no one wants to get their hands dirty with.
And I even say in the diary, like, this is Forsburn is almost like direct DM player intervention into the party, almost, because it's like he's there to be the mentor that she needs, not the one she wants, kind of thing. Not outwardly like I'm going to teach you, but it's like he's going to present things to her that's going to, like, hopefully push
in a way she won't like. But
yeah,
she might, still have to learn from.
Yeah, and at the same time, you're going to have some fun being, morally grey. Well, just not morally grey. That's what he knows. That's the glory about that character. He's applying his Khotan society lens to the world, and is like, when I had you walk into that, when you walked into the speaker's place and you were doing the one over, it was all described to you through the lens of, if this was an enemy clan, we're in big trouble. Why are we doing this kind of thing? And that's how you see the world, like that all the time. Through that Khotan lens. And I'm really looking forward to how you're going to interpret that, because you're really good at doing that. You're really good at taking the things I give you, like with Jorga's shit, and using it. I really like that about you, Carl. I really do.
Are you specifically referring to stuff like the bangles and that?
Yeah. I like how you take the character information and use it. It's great. I'm looking forward to how you're going to use Forsburn stuff. It's going to be cool.
We'll see. Say a lot of this is like sort of just like on the cuff stuff.
Yeah.
I like to think of. I enjoy the role. I enjoy a lot of aspects about the D&D. I love the combat. I like role playing. I like meaningful. Trying to hit like really cool story beats and stuff. Game's fun. The game is fun. Everyone should play D&D, and everyone, it's definitely, especially this day and age where everything is done through the internet. Everything is done, so detached from each other. There's no like social. Yeah, it's such a great form of therapy and all that kind of thing. Fucking cool as shit that you let me just like do a monologue to like to do like a prologue sort of thing to introduce my character, and then you fucking made him. And
yeah.
That's just awesome. That's just above and beyond to make your player feel fucking cool. So, I really like that.
It's just the same. There's no dwarves in Guild Wars 2, so I can't make Stronus. I can't really make Susie's character either. But hey-ho.
Only major flaw of the game.
Yeah. I mean, there are dwarves in Guild Wars 2. They're just not a playable race. Most of them are. Anyway, that's a different topic. Guild Wars 2, I can talk about for ages about lore stuff. I think that's going to be it then for this one. We'll do another one, I don't know, about another 10 sessions or so when things crop up. Maybe have another talk about something else. I don't know. But thank you so much for this chat. This has been great.
All good.
Yeah.
I plug my channel, but there's nothing interesting on it, so fuck it.
Oh, yeah, sure. And yeah. Right. Thank you everyone for listening, and I guess we'll see you guys next time.